Hello, my name is Sophia Papa, and welcome to my personal analysis on the investigation conducted into the tragic murder of Alissa Shippert. This community-shaking case featured in season 16, episode 13 of the popular crime show On the Case with Paula Zahn showcases the meticulous, forensic, and investigative work of law enforcement in Platte County, Missouri in the case of Alissa's murder. Today, we will explore together the investigative techniques, the tools, and the interagency collaborations that led us to this resolution of the case and the justice brought to this community. So for a case overview, Alissa Shippert was a vibrant young woman, according to all of her family and friends, whose life was ever so tragically cut short while she was fishing along the Platte River in the Woody conservative area. Her murder completely shocked the local community and prompted an intensive investigation immediately following the finding of her body on May 31st, 2011. The cause of death was blunt force trauma to the head with a hatchet, and the location was Platte River, Platte Falls Conservation Area in Missouri. So, as for the initial crime scene investigation, I have here a map of the Platte Falls Conservation Area, which Alissa was found in. As you can see, it is a very secluded area, and the secluded nature of the crime scene definitely did pose significant challenges for forensic crime scene technicians and investigators alike. Being in the conservation area, Alissa, she was surrounded by wilderness and isolated from the rest of the community that is so close to her, as well as this that completely alters what would have been a very clear-cut crime scene. Investigators did have to work with the environmental factors of this terrain, such as water and wildlife activity, which can definitely alter a body when it is left there for a longer period of time. And this can definitely degrade the little evidence that they had left standing. This created a lot of struggles for agencies. They had to work around a lot of different body abnormalities created by this environment, and they had to continue their whole investigation upon this basis. It's very clear that forensic analysis and forensic experts played a very crucial role in this case when it comes to analyzing the evidence that they were given, as well as given the standard of it upon finding it, given the environment. Alissa also had severe trauma to her body, to the point where first responders found scattered bone fragments surrounding the victim, showing insane levels of overkill. The autopsy of Alissa confirmed that a hatchet was used, which helped investigators in the process of narrowing down potential suspects that could be familiar with such tools, as well as suspects that could be familiar with this terrain. As you can see on the right, I do have a trace evidence kit, which is what forensic experts would be using to collect the evidence at the crime scene, which was a really big deal for this case, as well as mentioned before, the autopsy. So, community engagement was a very big aspect of this case, along with the forensic analysis done, as mentioned before. Upon the start of the ongoing investigation into Alissa's murder, law enforcement agencies did decide to reach out to the community that she was so heavily a part of. They were seeking any sort of information that could lead to a breakthrough, which did end up being a very beneficial idea for them in the long run, as this small community was able to be of aid, which I will speak about soon. Um, Public appeals were also used in this process, which is a little bit unheard of. But this was done to kind of help keep this case in the public eye, so to say, and keep the community vigilant in finding Alyssa's murder. Press did release the information about this case to the public, as well as any sort of suspect details that they had. They were encouraging this community to give tips and call and try and solve this case for Alissa. One of the most pivotal moments in this case that caused the case breakthrough that we know, as well as bringing up suspect standing, came when the Platte County resident, Brittany Costello, survived a extremely brutal sexual assault attack. She was able to provide details about her assailant to the police, which did describe our suspect of Alyssa's murder, which was obviously unbeknownst at the time. But this information was extremely crucial in connecting the dots between the two incidents as investigators began to notice a sort of pattern of violence and were able to begin investigating into the potential suspect of Brittany Costello's assault. Brittany was attacked on December of 2011, so following shortly after Alyssa's murder, she was attacked in her home, and it was a extremely violent sexual and physical assault. As for suspect identification, the one and only Quentin Odell, an actual former coworker of Alissa, emerged as the main suspect after he was identified for the attack of Brittany Costello. It was Brittany's physical description of Odell, which wasn't known as Odell at the time, but did match pretty perfectly, which brought him to investigators' attention. Further investigation in concerns to the case of Alissa Shippert led to his eventual arrest and confession for both Brittany's attack as well as his connection to Alissa Shippert's murder. So it was actually Odell's eventual guilty plea that spared this small, heart-struck community of a very tragic and honestly objectively unneeded prolonged trial. Odell, being obviously the suspect of his crimes, did receive a life sentence, which ensured he would never pose a threat to the Platte County community or even the general public again. He confessed and pleaded guilty to both the murder of Alissa and the physical and sexual assault of Brittany, and he avoided the death penalty in doing it. So now moving into the investigative tools and methods, the successful closing as well as the prosecution of this case was really only due to a more complex combination you can say, traditional detective work and more modern forensic science practices, tools, and methods like forensic pathology and DNA analysis. The collaboration between agencies, both on a local, state, and federal level, completely amplified the effectiveness of this investigation on an overall front. You have individuals behind the scenes using tools like DNA analysis on the hatchet that was used, as well as the body, to cross-search. You also have people behind the scenes doing autopsies and um, going down criminal databases to see what type of people we're dealing with here. The investigative tools used were really the biggest part of this case. They were able to do so much with the honestly very little information that they were given. This body was not in the best shape for investigation and autopsy, but they were really able to make some heavy headway. So now, closing out with all of this information in mind, what do we really know? We do know that Alissa Shippert's case is a very sad reminder of how sudden and senseless violence can break a community. It's also a very powerful testament to the resilience of the community that is left behind. Um, the commitment that it takes from law enforcement and all of these separate agencies to pursue justice on a case like this, no matter the time it takes or how little information that they start with. This case unfolded over a stretch of months of deep investigation, and detectives refused to let this case go cold. They wanted justice for Alissa. Relying on a blend of, like I said, traditional detective work, which involves interviewing witnesses and working on more behavioral analysis, as well as the more modern forensic science and interagency communication that was taken. These efforts made a even more critical case when Brittany Costello survived a similar violent attack. It was definitely her bravery and her confidence, as well as her cooperation, that helped completely redirect the investigation, and that is what brought the justice for Alissa. This case definitely does illustrate the evolution of investigative methods. Years ago, this case would have remained unsolved. Given the location, the limited evidence, there were no direct witnesses because of the remote location. This case would have been cold. But the use of things like criminal profiling and pathology and DNA analysis, the agencies involved were able to tie everything together. They were able to solve this case and bring justice to Alissa and incarcerate Odell. It's extremely important to highlight cases like this. Behind every statistic is a real person, a daughter, a community member, a worker, a friend, just like Alissa. This case also reinforces why forensic science is not just technical, it is human. Bringing truth to light, standing up for victims, advocating, this is what forensics is about. Today, because of the efforts of local authorities, community members, forensic teams, and state investigators, Alyssa's family has been given justice. Her killer, Quentin Odell, is behind bars and will remain behind bars. The community can begin to heal from this. But the most important is the case serves as a forever reminder of the importance of persevering and the critical role of, honestly, survivor voices. The future depends on it, and the future depends on these forensic tools to solve even the most difficult cases like Alyssa's. I would like to thank you so much for listening, and I hope that this case can stick with you, at least in a positive way.